They called me the maid in my own home. They laughed over my marble counters, the ones my late husband and I had chosen together, and spoke about me as if I were invisible. That night, I didn't argue. I cleaned the wine rings, dried my hands, and began to plan. What they didn't know was that the house, the mortgage, the deed, every inch of it, was mine. And when I handed them the keys, I made sure the lesson came attached to a bill they would never forget. This is how silence learned to speak. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. They called me the maid in my own house. The words came 3 weeks ago. I was standing at the sink. Midnight had already passed. Wine rings marked the marble counter. Harold and I had chosen that stone together. 30 years back, his hand had rested on mine when we signed. Now his hand was gone. The house remained. I wiped the rings slowly. My son Ethan and his wife Savannah had hosted friends upstairs. Laughter had carried through the floorboards. Then the voices stopped. Car doors slammed outside. The guests left. I kept cleaning. Footsteps came down the stairs. Light ones. Savannah moved like someone who had never carried weight. She wore silk pajamas. Pale blue. The kind that cost more than groceries. She glanced at the counter. Half the plates were still stacked. "Leave it for the cleaning service," she said. Her tone was not unkind. It was worse. It was automatic. She spoke to me the way people speak to furniture. Useful. Expected. Invisible. I did not correct her. The faucet ran. I dried my hands. She filled a glass with filtered water. The refrigerator hummed. She drank standing there. Then she drifted back upstairs. The house went quiet again. I looked at the plates. At the wine rings. At the marble Harold had loved. This was my home. I had paid for every inch. The roof. The floors. The silence. But silence was all I owned now. 3 weeks earlier, they had come to me with a folder. Glossy paper. Heavy stock. The kind that costs extra. Savannah spread brochures across the dining table. A country club. Premier membership. She used words like networking and opportunity. Ethan stood beside her. He nodded but did not speak. The membership cost $18,000. Plus annual dues. Savannah said it would boost Ethan's career. She said everyone important belonged. She said it like a fact. Like gravity. I wrote the check. Not because I believed her. Because I wanted peace. Because saying no would bring sulking. Sharp voices. Days of cold silence. I thought I was buying quiet. I was buying permission. Permission to keep eroding me. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. I had been at the cemetery. Harold's grave sits beneath an oak. I bring fresh flowers every week. That day I brought white roses. His favorite. The drive home took 20 minutes. I opened the front door. The air felt wrong. Rearranged. The living room had changed. Harold's bookcase was gone. The oak one. 6 feet tall. He had built it himself. Dovetail joints. No nails. Just patience and precision. In its place hung a television. Wall-mounted. Enormous. Wires snaked down like veins. I stood very still. The books were missing. First editions. Gardening manuals. Leather spines. Harold's penciled notes in the margins. I found them later. In the basement. Cardboard boxes. Crooked stacks. Dust already settling. I went back upstairs. Touched the wall. Faint outlines showed where the shelves had been. Ghosts in the paint. Something inside me changed. Not rage. Not heat. Cold. Hard. Clear. Silence had not bought peace. It had purchased permission. Permission to erase Harold. Permission to erase me. I would not be erased. The dinner happened 4 days later. Savannah's parents came. Charles and Denise Langford. Old money. New manners. The table gleamed. I had set it myself. White china. Crystal glasses. Lilies in a vase. Their perfume was thick. Almost medicinal. I cooked. Roasted chicken. Garlic potatoes. Green beans with almonds. I served each course. Poured wine. Refilled water. They talked about Tuscany. About a yacht they had chartered. About curating lifestyle. That word. Curating. Like life was an art exhibit. Denise watched me pour the Cabernet. She smiled at Savannah. Said she was lucky to have full-time help. Savannah laughed. A light sound. Musical. She said they did not have staff. Just Nora, who helped out. Like the maid. No one corrected her. Not Ethan. Not Charles. Not Denise. I set the bottle down. My hand did not shake. My jaw did not clench. I excused myself. The study door closed behind me. The air smelled different there. Paper. Cedar. Harold's cologne still lingered somehow. I turned on the banker's lamp. Green glass shade. Warm light. I sat in his chair. And I faced what I had allowed. A son who chose convenience over courage. A daughter-in-law who mistook generosity for obligation. My own habit of swallowing insults. Of smoothing edges. Of keeping the evening pleasant. I opened the wall safe. It sat behind Harold's favorite Emerson volume. The combination was our anniversary. Inside were no jewels. Just documents. The deed. Paid mortgage. Tax records. Portfolio statements. The letter from the year we replaced the roof. The house had been free and clear for a decade. I understood then. Boundaries are not announced. They are enforced. And enforcement, like hospitality, can be graceful. I closed the safe. Returned the book. Turned off the lamp. When I walked back into the dining room, dessert was being served. I smiled. Poured coffee. And began to plan. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The attorney's office sat in a converted brownstone. 3 blocks from the botanical gardens. Harold and I used to walk there on Sundays. I called Marisol Grant on a Wednesday morning. She had handled Harold's estate. My retirement paperwork. The trust documents we never had to use. Her voice was steady on the phone. Professional. She asked if everything was all right. I told her I needed to discuss property matters. She had an opening Friday at 10. The building smelled of lemon polish and old wood. The receptionist offered coffee. I declined. My hands were already steady. Marisol's office had floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. Law volumes. Dark spines. Gold lettering. A single window overlooked a courtyard. Ivy climbed the brick wall outside. She gestured to the leather chair across from her desk. I sat, smoothed my skirt, placed my purse beside me. She waited. Marisol had always known when to wait. I began with the country club membership. $18,000. Then the bookcase. Harold's books boxed in the basement. The television mounted where his handiwork had been. Then the dinner. The Langfords. The Cabernet. The word Maid. Marisol took notes on a yellow legal pad. Her pen moved quickly, efficiently. She did not interrupt. When I finished, she set the pen down. She said it was not one outrageous act. It was erosion. Systematic. Disrespectful. A pattern of taking without acknowledging cost. I nodded. That was exactly right. She asked what I wanted. I wanted my dignity back. I wanted them to understand ownership. I wanted Harold's memory protected. I wanted peace that did not require my silence. Marisol leaned back in her chair, steepled her fingers, looked at me for a long moment. Then she smiled. Small, sharp. The smile of someone who had solved harder puzzles. She explained the strategy like a chess game. Calm, precise, elegant. The house was paid off. Free and clear. Worth approximately $850,000. I could secure a home equity line of credit. Up to 80% of the value. Roughly $680,000. I would draw those funds. Transfer them to an account in my name only. Then I would quit-claim the deed. Transfer full ownership to Ethan and Savannah. The lien would follow the property. Automatically. Legally. They would own the house. And the debt attached to it. Marisol walked through the numbers. Monthly payments. Property taxes. Insurance. Maintenance. Utilities. The full cost of homeownership on a house that size. She estimated $7,000 monthly. Minimum. I thought of Ethan's salary. Savannah's part-time marketing work. Their cars. Their memberships. Their lifestyle spending. The math was simple. Brutal. Clear. Marisol asked about my own finances. My retirement account. My pension. Social Security. The life insurance payout from Harold. I had more than enough. Even after funding what I wanted to fund. She asked what I meant. I told her about Harold's garden notebooks. His love of teaching. His dream of helping young people learn to grow things. I wanted to establish a scholarship. The Harold Bennett Garden Scholarship. For students studying landscape architecture, horticulture, environmental design. The equity I extracted would seed that fund. $600,000. Managed properly, it could help students for decades. Marisol made more notes. Asked about my housing plans. I had already looked. A one-bedroom apartment. 10 blocks from the gardens. Sunlit. Quiet. Available November 1st. The rent was $1,200 monthly. 1/6 of what the house cost to maintain. She asked if I was certain. If I had considered alternatives. Family mediation. Conversations. Warnings. I had considered everything. For months. Years perhaps. Conversations required listeners. Warnings required people who believed in consequences. I was done teaching lessons gently. The world would teach them now. Marisol nodded slowly. She understood. She said she would draft the documents. The HELOC application. The quit-claim deed. The scholarship trust. Everything legal. Airtight. Irreversible. The timeline would be tight. 3 weeks. Maybe 4. I told her I could wait. I had been waiting long enough. A few more weeks meant nothing. She walked me to the door. Shook my hand. Her grip was firm. She said Harold would be proud. That this was justice. Proportional. Earned. I thanked her. But I was not doing this for pride. Not even for justice. I was doing it for clarity. So my son could learn what his father knew. That everything costs something. That respect is not optional. That love without boundaries becomes permission for harm. The walk home took 30 minutes. The October air was cool. Sharp. Leaves skittered across the sidewalk. Red and gold. I stopped at the gardens. Sat on the bench Harold loved. The one facing the dahlia beds. The flowers were fading now. Past their peak. But still beautiful. Still dignified in their decline. I thought about the house. About the years I had spent maintaining it. Cleaning it. Paying for it. Protecting it. I had thought I was protecting my son. giving him security, a foundation. But foundations require builders who understand weight, who respect the ground beneath them. I had given him a house. He had turned it into a hotel. With me as staff. That would end now. The scholarship would begin. Harold's books would be honored. My life would shrink to fit my needs, not their expectations. I stood, brushed leaves from my coat, walked toward the house one more time. Inside, Savannah was on her laptop, planning something. Another event perhaps. Another expense. She glanced up, asked if I could pick up dry cleaning tomorrow. I said I would see. My calendar was getting full. She looked surprised, then nodded, went back to her screen. I climbed the stairs to my room. The one I had shared with Harold. The one I would leave in 3 weeks. I opened the closet, started sorting clothes, deciding what mattered, what could be released. Most of it could go. I did not need much. Just enough for a smaller life. A truer one. Outside, the sun dropped behind the trees. The room dimmed. I turned on the bedside lamp. Harold's photo sat on the nightstand. His smile was slight, knowing, the way he looked when he was proud of me. I touched the frame, told him I was fixing it. Finally, the house creaked, settling, the way old houses do. Soon it would settle under different weight. Different owners, different consequences. I folded a sweater, placed it in the donation box. And I kept sorting. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The bank smelled like cold air and carpet cleaner. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Tuesday morning, 9:30 exactly. A loan officer named Patricia led me to a glass-walled office. Her heels clicked on polished tile. She wore a navy suit. Pearl earrings. She offered water, coffee. I declined both. The application sat between us. 23 pages. Tabs marked where signatures were needed. Patricia explained each section. Interest rates, draw periods, repayment terms. Her voice was practiced, pleasant. She had done this hundreds of times. The house appraisal had come back. $847,000. Higher than Marisol estimated. 80% equity meant $677,000 available. The bank preferred round numbers. They offered $650,000. I agreed. The difference did not matter. Patricia slid papers across the desk, pointed to highlighted lines. I read every word, every clause, every contingency. Harold had taught me that. Read everything. Sign nothing you do not understand. The loan carried a variable rate. 4.7% initially. Payments would be interest only for 5 years. Then principal and interest. On $650,000, that meant roughly $2,500 monthly. During the interest-only period. After 5 years, closer to $4,000. Maybe more if rates climbed. Patricia asked if I had questions. Her pen hovered over a notepad. I asked about the lien. How it attached. How it transferred. She explained clearly. The lien followed the property, not the borrower. Once recorded, it stayed with the deed. Through any ownership change, even a quitclaim transfer, I asked. Especially a quitclaim, she said. Those offered no warranty, no protection. The new owner accepted all existing encumbrances. I nodded, picked up the pen, signed my name 12 times. Patricia collected the pages, smiled, said funding would complete in 7 business days. I thanked her, stood, shook her hand. Outside, the October sun felt warm. A breeze carried the smell of roasting coffee. A street vendor sold pretzels on the corner. I walked 4 blocks to the apartment building. The one I had toured last week. The landlord met me in the lobby. His name was Frank. 60-something. Kind eyes. A slight limp. He handed me the lease. Month to month after the first year. $1,200 monthly. Utilities included except electric. The apartment was 4C. 4th floor. Corner unit. Windows faced east and south. Frank rode the elevator with me. The car was old but clean. Brass fixtures polished to a shine. He unlocked the door, gestured me inside. Sunlight poured through bare windows. Hardwood floors needed polish but were solid. The kitchen was small. White cabinets. Old but functional. 1 bedroom. 1 bath. A coat closet by the entrance. Maybe 700 square feet total. 1/10 the size of the house. Frank pointed out the radiator. The working fireplace. The built-in bookshelves in the living room. Those shelves decided it. Harold's books would fit perfectly there. I told Frank I would take it. November 1st. He nodded. Said he would email the lease tonight. The walk back took me past the gardens. The gate was open. I went inside. Volunteers were mulching the dahlia beds, preparing them for winter. Their rakes scraped against gravel paths. Harold had volunteered here every Saturday for 15 years, teaching visitors about native plants, soil composition, seasonal cycles. He believed gardens taught patience, showed consequences, rewarded attention. I sat on our bench again, watched the volunteers work. Their movements were efficient, respectful. They knew what they were doing. My phone buzzed. A text from Marisol. The quitclaim deed was drafted. Ready for my review. I texted back. Thursday at 10 worked for me. A woman passed pushing a stroller. The baby slept. The mother looked tired, happy. 2 teenagers sat on the grass, sharing earbuds, laughing at something on a phone. Life continued, turned, seasons changed. People adapted or they did not. I thought about Ethan, about the boy he had been. Curious, gentle. He had helped Harold in the garden, learned the Latin names for flowers. Somewhere he had forgotten those names, forgotten the lessons underneath them. That everything requires tending, that neglect costs, that beauty demands responsibility. Maybe he would remember now. Or maybe Savannah would leave him when the money tightened, when the house sold, when reality replaced the performance. Either way, he would learn. The world was a patient teacher, ruthless but fair. I stood, brushed my coat, headed home one more time. Inside, boxes were appearing. Amazon deliveries stacked by the door. Savannah's shopping. More things for a house she did not own. Not yet anyway. I carried them to the living room. The television glowed. Some home renovation show. Beautiful people making expensive choices. Ethan's laptop sat open on the dining table. Spreadsheets. Work projects. He had been busy lately. Extra hours. Good, I thought. He would need that discipline. I went to the study. Harold's room. My room now. The place I made decisions. The wall safe stood open. I had been moving documents. Birth certificates. Marriage license. Harold's death certificate. The deed sat on top. My name only. Sole owner. Clear title. In 3 days it would change. 2 names added. Mine removed. The house would belong to them, along with everything attached to it. I closed the safe, spun the dial, heard the tumblers click. Upstairs, Savannah's voice drifted down. She was on the phone, talking about holiday plans, some trip to Aspen. Let her plan, I thought. Let her imagine. Reality would arrive soon enough. In a manila folder, with numbers that did not care about imagination. I pulled Harold's pocket watch from my desk drawer. Gold case. Engraved with his initials. It still kept perfect time. I wound it slowly. Listened to the mechanism tick. Steady. Reliable. Honest. Time moved forward. Always forward. Carrying consequences like a river carries leaves. You could swim with it or against it. But you could not stop it. I set the watch down. Started a new list. Things to pack. Things to donate. Things to leave behind. The house had been my anchor. My burden. My excuse. Soon it would be theirs. And I would be light. Free. Small enough to fit through a door I chose. The afternoon sun angled through the window. Dust motes danced in the beam. The room smelled like paper and old wood. Harold's scent was almost gone now. 5 years was a long time. But the feeling remained. The feeling that he was proud. That he understood. That he would have done the same thing. Not out of anger. Out of love. The kind that tells the truth. Even when truth has sharp edges. Even when it costs something. Even when it hurts. I finished the list. Folded it. Placed it in my purse. Thursday I would sign the deed. 7 days after that, the money would clear. Then I would tell them. Calmly. Clearly. With documents they could not argue against. The house was theirs. So was the responsibility. The cost. The choice to keep it or sell it. I would not rescue them. Would not soften it. Would not apologize. I was done being the maid. Done being furniture. Done being erased. The mother was leaving. On her own terms. With her husband's books. And her dignity intact. I stood. Turned off the desk lamp. Closed the study door behind me. Downstairs, Savannah was laughing at something. The sound carried like music. Light. Unaware. Let her laugh, I thought. Let her enjoy these last weeks. The lesson was coming. Patient. Inevitable. Kind in its cruelty. I went to the kitchen. Put the kettle on. Made tea. And I waited. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The wire transfer completed on a Thursday. November 2nd, 11:43 in the morning. My phone chimed. An email from the bank. Funds available. $650,000. Account ending in 7342. I was sitting in a coffee shop. 2 blocks from Marisol's office. The espresso machine hissed. Steam rose. A barista called out names. The number felt abstract. Too large to picture. Too heavy to hold. But the freedom felt real. Immediate. Like a door opening. I finished my coffee. Walked to Marisol's building. The ivy on the courtyard wall had turned crimson. November colors. Deep and final. Her assistant showed me in. Marisol had the deed ready. Cream-colored paper. Official seals. Notary stamps. She walked me through it one last time. The quitclaim transferred all ownership interest. From me to Ethan Michael Bennett and Savannah Clark Langford Bennett. Joint tenants with rights of survivorship. The lien remained. $650,000. Plus interest. Secured by the property. First position. Marisol asked if I was ready. Her pen rested on the document. I signed. Dated. The notary watched. Stamped. Signed her own name. Done. Marisol would file it tomorrow. Record it with the county. The transfer would be public. Official. Permanent. She asked when I planned to tell them. Sunday, I said. 3 o'clock. I had already asked them to be home. Called it a family meeting. Marisol nodded. Asked if I wanted her present. For legal support, I declined. This was not a negotiation. Just a delivery. Information they needed to receive. She walked me out, squeezed my shoulder, said to call if anything went wrong. Nothing would go wrong. Wrong implied mistakes, accidents. This was entirely intentional. The afternoon was cold. Gray clouds pressed low. I walked to the new apartment building. Frank met me with keys. 2 brass keys on a simple ring. No house key anymore. No study key. No gate key. Just 4C. And the mailbox. Number 48. I rode the elevator alone. The car rattled slightly. Comforting somehow. Honest about its age. The apartment echoed when I entered. Empty. Waiting. The radiator clanked. Heat rising. I walked through each room. Measured with my eyes. Harold's bookshelf would fit along that wall. The kitchen table by the south window. My bed in the bedroom. Nothing else needed. I had hired movers for Monday. They would pack the essentials. 3 hours of work. Maybe 4. Everything else could stay. The dining set. The guest beds. The expensive pots. All of it. Let Ethan and Savannah keep them. Or sell them. Or drown under the weight of them. I locked the apartment. Rode down. Walked back to the house. One last time as a resident. After Sunday, just a visitor. A guest in what used to be mine. Inside, cardboard boxes lined the hallway. My boxes. I had been packing gradually. 1 room at a time. Savannah noticed them last week. Asked if I was doing donations. Spring cleaning, I told her. Getting organized. She nodded. Distracted. She did not ask what I was organizing. Did not offer to help. That was fine. I did not want help. I wanted precision. Control. An exit that left no questions. I went upstairs. Started packing Harold's clothes. The sweaters I had kept. His winter coat. Wool. Navy blue. It still smelled like him somehow. I folded each piece carefully. Placed them in a box marked for donation. The Veterans Center would take them. Give them to men who needed warmth. Harold would like that. Usefulness beyond sentiment. Purpose beyond preservation. His dresser emptied slowly. Socks. Undershirts. Handkerchiefs with his initials. All of it going. Making space. Making lightness. The pocket watch stayed. The wedding ring I wore on a chain. The photo from our 40th anniversary. His gardening journals. 5 leather-bound notebooks. Everything else could go. I moved to the closet. My own clothes now. 4 decades of accumulation. Dresses for events I would not attend again. Coats for winters in a house with a big entrance. Most of it unnecessary now. I needed 3 weeks of outfits. Maybe 4. Everything else was costume. Performance. Wait. The sorting took 2 hours. Donation bags filled. Trash bags too. The closet shrank to 1/4 full. Enough for a smaller life. A truer one. Downstairs, the front door opened. Ethan's voice carried up. He sounded tired, stressed. Savannah answered from the kitchen. Something about dinner. About reservations. Her voice had an edge. Impatient. They had been fighting more. Small tensions. Money probably. The credit cards. The country club dues. The maintenance on 2 leased cars. The house had hidden those costs. My money had cushioned them. Let them live beyond their means. Beyond their math. That cushion was leaving. Along with me. I went downstairs. Found them in the kitchen. Ethan loosening his tie. Savannah chopping vegetables. Aggressive. Quick. I mentioned the family meeting. Sunday. 3 o'clock. I needed them both present. No exceptions. Ethan looked worried, asked if everything was okay. If I was sick, I smiled, told him everything was fine. Just some things to discuss. Estate planning, future arrangements. He relaxed slightly, nodded. Savannah barely looked up, said they would be here. I went to the study, closed the door, sat at Harold's desk. The room felt different now. Lighter, like it knew its purpose was ending, like it was ready to release me. I opened my laptop, started a document. What to say Sunday, how to say it. The words came easily, calm, clear, no anger, no blame, just facts, dates, numbers, consequences. I saved the document, printed 2 copies, one for them, one for my records. Then I opened my banking app, checked the balance again. 650,000, still there, still real. I transferred 50,000 to a new account. The scholarship fund, the Harold Bennett Garden Scholarship. Marisol had set up the nonprofit. Tax exempt, everything legal. 50,000 to start. More would follow. Once I settled, once I knew my own needs. The rest would stay invested. Grow. Fund my life. A simple life. Affordable. Mine. I closed the laptop, turned off the desk lamp, looked around the study one last time as its owner. The books, the chair, the safe behind the Emerson volume. All of it staying, passing to Ethan, along with the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, the utilities, the maintenance, the reality. Sunday he would learn what his father knew. That ownership costs. That houses demand. That nothing free is actually free. I left the study, climbed the stairs, past Ethan's voice on the phone. Work call. He sounded uncertain, apologetic. In my room, I continued packing. Jewelry box, photo albums, Harold's medals from the service, the quilt my mother made. Each item went into labeled boxes. Careful, organized, nothing left to chance. By 9 o'clock, the room was mostly bare. Closets empty, drawers sorted, just the bed and dresser remaining. I sat on the bed. The same bed Harold and I bought in 1989. Firm mattress, oak frame, too big for the new apartment. It would stay too. Everything would stay, except me, and the truth, and the bill for 36 years of maintenance. Outside, darkness pressed against the windows. The house creaked, settling, old bones adjusting. Sunday was 3 days away. 72 hours. Then the transfer would be complete. Explained. Irreversible. They would own the house. I would own the door. The choice to walk through it. The freedom to never return as anything but a guest. I changed into pajamas, washed my face, looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back was older, thinner, tired in the eyes, but not defeated, not erased, not furniture. She was leaving, on her own terms, with her husband's memory protected, with her dignity intact. I turned off the light, got into bed, felt the weight of the house around me. Heavy, familiar, almost finished. 3 more nights, then I would sleep somewhere else. Somewhere smaller, somewhere mine. The radiator hissed, heat cycling through old pipes, doing its job until the end. Like me, I thought. Like me. I closed my eyes, listened to the house breathe, and waited for Sunday. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Sunday arrived cold and clear. November 5th. The trees were nearly bare. Branches scratched against windows when the wind blew. I woke at 6. Made coffee, toast with butter. My last breakfast as owner of this kitchen. The house was quiet. Ethan and Savannah slept late on weekends. The privilege of people without worry. That would change today. At 3 o'clock, I dressed carefully. Navy slacks, white blouse. The pearls Harold gave me for our 20th anniversary. Not for them. For me. For armor. The morning passed in final details. Canceling cable. Stopping lawn service. Transferring the security system to their names. Each call severed a thread. By noon the house was technically theirs. They just did not know it yet. I made soup for lunch. Ate standing at the counter. The marble still showed faint wine rings. I did not scrub them. Not my job anymore. At 2:30, movement upstairs. Shower running. Footsteps. Voices. I arranged the living room. 3 chairs in a triangle. The coffee table centered. A manila folder sitting there. Thick. Official. Inside were copies. The quitclaim deed. The HELOC agreement. Payment schedules. Utility transfers. Everything documented. Everything final. At 2:55, they came downstairs. Ethan wore jeans and a sweater. Savannah had makeup on. Hair styled. She always dressed for invisible audiences. They sat together on the sofa. I took the chair across. The folder between us. Ethan asked what this was about. His voice edged with concern. Maybe guilt. I told them I had made decisions. About the house. About my future. About theirs. Savannah glanced at Ethan. He leaned forward, waiting. I opened the folder. Slid the first document across. The quitclaim deed. County recorded. Stamped. Official. The house now belonged to them. Full ownership. As of November 2nd, 3 days ago. Savannah's face lit up. Actual joy. She said finally. Said she had been waiting. Said thank you. Ethan looked confused. Relieved. Started to say something about generosity. About gratitude. I held up my hand. Told them to keep reading. I slid over the HELOC documents. The loan agreement. The lien notice. The payment schedule. The silence changed. Sharpened. Ethan picked up the papers. His eyes moved quickly. Scanning. Calculating. His face went pale. Savannah leaned over. Read with him. Her mouth opened. No sound came. The numbers were clear. $650,000 borrowed. Against the house. 4.7% interest. First payment due November 28. $2,550. Monthly. Interest only. For 5 years. Then $4,200. Plus principal. For 30 years. Property taxes due January 15th. $11,000. Insurance. $4,000 annually. Utilities. Maintenance. All transferred to their names. Ethan looked up. Asked what this meant. His voice thin. Strangled. I explained simply. The lien followed the property. They owned the house. They owned the debt. Both were now their responsibility. Savannah said this was insane. Said I could not do this. Said it was not legal. I told her everything was legal. Everything recorded. Everything done. I had excellent counsel. She was welcome to get her own. Ethan asked why. Why would I do this? His voice broke slightly. Hurt. Confused. I told him about the country club membership. About Harold's bookcase. About the Langford dinner. About being called the Maid. About being treated like furniture. I had been subsidizing their lifestyle. Their cars. Their trips. Their performance. While being erased in my own home. Savannah started to argue. Said they never asked for any of that. Said I offered. Said I chose generosity. I agreed. I had chosen generosity. But generosity requires gratitude, respect, basic acknowledgement. They had offered none of those. Ethan put his head in his hands. Asked what they were supposed to do. Where the money would come from. I told him they had options. Pay the mortgage, sell the house, refinance if possible. Their choices, their responsibility. Savannah stood. Said she was calling her parents. Said they would fix this. Lawyers, money, something. I told her to call anyone she wanted. The deed was recorded. The lien secured. No one could undo it. She left the room. Heels loud on hardwood. A door slammed upstairs. Ethan stayed sitting, staring at the papers. His hands shook slightly. He looked young suddenly, overwhelmed, lost. He asked where I would go. What my plan was. I told him I had an apartment. Paid for. Near the gardens. Moving tomorrow. Already arranged. He asked if I needed help. If he could do anything. I told him I had hired movers. Everything handled. He should focus on his own situation now. He nodded slowly. Asked if I hated them. If this was punishment. I told him it was not hate. Not punishment. It was education. A lesson overdue. That houses cost money. That respect matters. That taking without acknowledging creates debt. Real debt. Emotional and financial. Ethan's eyes filled. He did not cry. But the tears were there. Threatening. He said he was sorry. For the bookcase. For letting Savannah talk that way. For not standing up. For being weak. I told him sorry was a word. Action mattered more. How he handled this would show who he really was. I stood. Picked up my coat. Put it on slowly. Buttoned it carefully. I told them the movers would come tomorrow at 9. They should stay out of the way. After that, the house was theirs. Completely. I would not return unless invited. Ethan asked if he could call me. If we could still talk. I told him my door was always open. To my son. Not to the man who let his wife call his mother the maid. He needed to decide which one he wanted to be. I picked up my purse. Walked to the front door. Opened it. Cold air rushed in. Behind me, Ethan sat motionless. Upstairs, Savannah's voice carried. Angry. Shrill. Talking to someone. Her mother probably. I stepped outside. Closed the door. The latch clicked. Final. Clean. The brass key was still in my pocket. I took it out. Looked at it. 36 years of unlocking this door. I walked back. Opened the mail slot. Dropped the key through. Heard it hit the floor inside. Then I walked away. Down the steps. Along the sidewalk. Toward the bus stop. The number 12 came after 10 minutes. I rode it downtown. To the new building. The apartment looked different now. Not temporary. Not a backup plan. Home. I unlocked 4C. Stepped inside. The radiator hummed warmly. Afternoon sun filled the windows. The empty rooms waited. Tomorrow the movers would bring Harold's books. His journals. Our photos. The pocket watch. The pieces that mattered. Everything else could stay in that big house. With its big mortgage. With its big lessons. I sat on the floor. Back against the wall. The apartment was quiet. Peaceful. Mine. No wine glasses to wash. No insults to absorb. No performances to enable. Just space. Simple. Honest. True. The maid had quit. The mother remained. The woman was free. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The movers arrived Monday at 9 exactly. 2 men. Efficient. Polite. They wore matching navy shirts. I met them at the old house. Used my emergency key one last time. The door felt different now. heavier, foreign. Inside, the air was stale. No coffee brewing, no morning sounds. Ethan and Savannah had left early. Avoiding me, avoiding reality. The movers followed my instructions precisely. Harold's books from the basement. His journals from the study. The framed photos. The pocket watch. My clothes. Everything fit into one truck. Barely filled half the space. 36 years condensed to essentials. The lead mover asked about the furniture. The dining table. The bedroom set. I told him to leave it all. Someone else's problem now. By 11:30, the truck was loaded. I walked through the house one final time. Each room emptier. Echoing. The study still smelled like paper. Like cedar. Like Harold somehow. I touched the desk. The chair. Goodbye, I thought. Not to the room. To the woman who had needed it. The living room television still dominated the wall. Wires hanging like dead vines. Harold's bookcase outline still visible. A ghost. A scar. I locked the front door. Slid the emergency key through the mail slot. Heard it join the other one. The movers drove ahead. I took the bus. Watched neighborhoods change through the window. Big houses giving way to apartments. Space shrinking. Life condensing. Frank met us in the lobby. Helped direct the movers. 4th floor. Corner unit. The unpacking took 90 minutes. Harold's books on the built-in shelves. His journals on the desk. Photos arranged on the mantel. Everything found a place. Everything fit. Nothing wasted. The movers left at 1:15. I tipped them well. They had handled Harold's things with care. Then silence. Complete. Mine. I made tea in the tiny kitchen. The kettle was new. It whistled differently. Higher. Sharper. I sat by the window. The street below hummed with Monday traffic. People living their own math. My phone rang at 2:30. Unknown number. I answered. Savannah's voice. Tight. Cold. She said they needed to talk. About the house. About options. I told her to talk to a realtor. A financial advisor. Anyone but me. She said I owed them help. After what I had done. After destroying their lives. I told her I owed them nothing. They owed the bank. That was their relationship now. She called me cruel. Vindictive. A bitter old woman. I told her happiness built on someone else's erasure was not happiness. It was theft. Then I hung up. Turned off the phone. Set it face down. Days passed in a new rhythm. Smaller. Slower. Deliberate. Tuesday I walked to the gardens. Sat on the bench Harold loved. The dahlia beds were mulched now. Sleeping. A volunteer recognized me. Asked if I was Harold's wife. I said yes. She said he had taught her everything about native plants. We talked for 20 minutes. About soil. About seasons. She did not ask where I lived now. Wednesday I transferred $50,000 more to the scholarship fund. The Harold Bennett Garden Scholarship. First recipients would be announced in spring. Thursday I bought groceries. 1 bag. Enough for a week. The bill was $43. At the old house, grocery bills ran $200 weekly. None of it mine. Friday morning, Ethan called. I had turned my phone back on. His name appeared. I almost declined. But curiosity won. Or maybe hope. His voice sounded rough. Tired. He asked if we could meet. Just him. Not Savannah. I told him Sunday. 2 o'clock. The gardens. He agreed. Said thank you. Hung up quickly. Sunday came cold and bright. November 12th. 1 week since I had dropped the keys. I dressed warmly. Walked the 10 blocks to the gardens. The air smelled like winter coming. Sharp. Clean. Ethan waited by the entrance. Hands in pockets. Shoulders hunched. He looked smaller somehow. Diminished. He had not shaved. His eyes were shadowed. Tired. Real. We walked without speaking. Past the rose garden. The herb beds. The pond where ducks floated. Finally he stopped. Turned to me. Said he had been doing math. Running numbers. The mortgage was impossible. On his salary. With their debts. Their spending. Savannah wanted to refinance. Pull out more equity. Use it to pay the HELOC. But no bank would approve it. Too much debt. Not enough income. She wanted her parents to help. They had refused. Told her this was her mess. Her lesson. Even the Langfords understood. Finally, Ethan said they were listing the house. Realtor coming Tuesday. Open house next weekend. He asked what they could expect. What the house would sell for. I told him market value was around $850,000. Minus the HELOC. Minus fees. They might clear $100,000. Maybe less. He nodded. Said they had been looking at condos. Smaller places. Cheaper. Realistic. Savannah was angry. Blaming him. Blaming me. Blaming everyone except herself. He said he was not sure the marriage would survive this. Was not sure he wanted it to. I told him that was his choice. His consequence. But running without learning would just create the same pattern somewhere else. He asked what I wanted him to learn. I told him his father worked 2 jobs for 5 years. To pay off the house. To build security. Harold never complained. Never resented it. Because he understood the math. The cost. The responsibility. Ethan had inherited the result without learning the process. Without respecting the sacrifice. That was my failure as much as his. I had given too easily. Protected him from useful pain. He said he understood now. Said he wished he had understood sooner. I told him understanding was the beginning. Action was the proof. We walked further. Past the memorial garden. The place where volunteers planted bulbs for spring. Ethan said he had started taking extra projects. Working weekends. Trying to save. He said it felt strange. Working this hard. But also right. Like something he should have been doing all along. I told him his father would be proud. Of the work. Not the situation. But the response. We reached the garden exit. The street beyond. Traffic. Movement. Life continuing. Ethan asked if I was happy. In the small apartment. Alone. I told him I was not alone. I was independent. There was a difference. And yes, I was happy. Lighter. Freer. More myself than I had been in years. He nodded. Said he hoped he could learn that. Eventually. I told him he would. Or he would not. But either way, it was his to figure out. He hugged me then. Quick. Awkward. Real. Said he would call when the house sold. When things settled. I told him I would answer. That my door was open. That I loved him. But I would not rescue him. Would not cushion this. Would not undo the lesson. He said he knew. Said he did not want me to. Then he walked away. Toward the parking lot. Toward whatever he would build next. I watched him go. Felt the familiar pull. The mother instinct. The urge to fix. But I did not move. Did not call him back. The lesson was in motion. The consequences were teaching. My part was finished. I turned back to the gardens. Walked the paths alone. Past the empty beds. The sleeping bulbs. Spring would come. New growth would break through. What was planted now would bloom later. I sat on Harold's bench. Felt the cold wood through my coat. The November wind sharp. But underneath, warmth, certainty, peace. The maid had quit. The mother had stayed. The woman was whole. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. December arrived with snow, quiet, white, covering everything in temporary kindness. The apartment stayed warm. The radiator clanked faithfully each morning. I had settled into routines. Small ones, manageable. Coffee at 7. Toast with butter. The newspaper spread across the small kitchen table. Crossword puzzle completed in pen. Then walks. Sometimes to the gardens. Sometimes just around the neighborhood. Watching the city prepare for winter. Watching people hurry. Watching life move forward. The house sold on December 18th. Ethan called that evening. His voice was flat, exhausted, relieved. Final price was $825,000. Lower than appraisal. The buyers had negotiated hard. Found issues during inspection. After paying off the HELOC, realtor fees, closing costs, they cleared $92,000. Split between them, he said. He was moving to a one-bedroom near his office. Savannah was moving back to her parents. Temporarily. That was the word she used. The divorce papers were being drafted. Amicable. Quick. Neither of them wanted to drag it out. He asked if I felt vindicated. If this was what I had wanted. I told him I had not wanted their marriage to end. I had wanted them to grow up. Sometimes those things happened together. He was quiet for a moment. Then said he understood. Said he would call again soon. The line went dead. I set the phone down. Looked out at the December darkness. Streetlights reflecting off snow. The house was sold. The consequences delivered. The lesson concluded. What came next was up to them. Growth or bitterness. Learning or blame. Their choice entirely. Christmas week, I worked on the scholarship details with Marisol. The fund was established. Tax exempt. Properly structured. Applications would open in January. Winners announced in April. 3 students. $5,000 each. Renewable for 4 years. The Harold Bennett Garden Scholarship. His name on something that would grow. That would teach. That would matter. Marisol asked if I wanted recognition. My name alongside his. Founder. Benefactor. I declined. This was Harold's legacy. Not mine. I was just the gardener. Tending what he planted. She smiled. Said that was the most Harold thing I could have said. We signed the final documents. Toasted with coffee. She asked about my plans. About the new year. I told her I was thinking about volunteering. At the gardens. Teaching children about native plants. Continuing Harold's work. She said he would love that. That I should do it. I said I would. After the holidays. After things settled. After I was ready. On Christmas Eve, Ethan came to the apartment. First time he had visited. He brought a poinsettia. Red. Traditional. Slightly wilted. He looked around. At the small space. The simple furniture. Harold's books on the shelves. He said it felt peaceful. Comfortable. Real. I made tea. We sat by the window. Watched snow fall. Fat flakes. Lazy. Beautiful. He told me about the new apartment. About work. About therapy. He had started seeing someone. To talk about patterns. About family. About choices. The therapist had asked about his childhood. About his father. About me. Ethan said he had described us as perfect. No fighting. No conflict. No problems. The therapist asked if that was healthy. If conflict avoidance was the same as harmony. He had not known how to answer. Not then. But he was learning now. I told him Harold and I fought. Not often. Not loudly. But we disagreed. We negotiated. We pushed back when it mattered. He looked surprised. Said he never saw that. Never heard raised voices. I told him we did not raise voices. We raised standards. We held boundaries. We respected each other enough to be honest. That was what he had missed. What I had failed to model. After Harold died, I had stopped pushing back. Had smoothed everything. Had chosen peace over honesty. Ethan nodded slowly. Said that made sense. Said it explained a lot. He asked about Savannah. If I thought she would be okay. I told him she would be what she chose to be. Grateful or bitter. Growth-oriented or blame-focused. That was her work. Not his. Not mine. He said her parents were angry. Had threatened to sue me. For elder abuse. For manipulation. For something. Their lawyer had reviewed everything. Told them there was no case. Everything was legal. Everything was documented. Everything was my right. They had dropped it. But they were not speaking to him. Blamed him for not protecting Savannah. For not stopping me. He said that was fine. He did not need their approval anymore. Did not need anyone's permission to live honestly. I told him that was growth. Real growth. The kind that hurt. The kind that lasted. We sat in comfortable silence. The tea cooled. The snow continued. The world outside soft and white. He asked if I was lonely. Living alone. After so many years of marriage. Of family. I told him loneliness and solitude were different. Loneliness was emptiness. Solitude was fullness. Quiet fullness. I had Harold's books. His memory. My routines. The gardens. Myself. That was enough. More than enough. He said he hoped to feel that way someday. Self-sufficient. Complete. I told him he would. It took time. It took work. But it was possible. Necessary even. Before he left, he hugged me. Longer this time. Tighter. Real. Said thank you. For the lesson. For the honesty. For loving him enough to let him fail. I told him failure was not the word. Consequence was. Consequence was not failure. It was information. Data. Feedback. What he did with that information determined success or failure. He nodded. Said he would remember that. Then he left. Footsteps echoing in the hallway. The door closing softly. I cleaned up the teacups. Watered the poinsettia. Turned off most of the lights. The apartment glowed softly. Christmas lights from neighboring buildings reflected off snow. The city peaceful. Resting. I sat in Harold's chair. The one from the study. The movers had brought it. It fit perfectly by the window. His pocket watch sat on the side table. Still keeping time. Still reliable. Still Harold. I wound it slowly. Listened to the gears catch. The familiar tick. Steady. Honest. True. The year was ending. A hard year. A necessary year. A year of subtraction that felt like addition. Less house. More peace. Less performance. More truth. Less weight. More freedom. I thought about the scholarship students. 3 young people who would learn Harold's lessons. About soil. About patience. About tending things carefully. They would never meet him. Never hear his voice. Never see his careful hands demonstrating proper pruning. But they would benefit from his knowledge. From his love of teaching. From his belief that growth required attention. That felt right. Good. Complete. Outside, church bells rang. Midnight. Christmas Day. The sound carried through cold air. Clear. Beautiful. Hopeful. I did not go to church. Had not in years. But I said a prayer anyway. Silent. Simple. Thank you for Harold. For the years we had. For the lessons he taught. For the strength to honor them. Thank you for Ethan. For his willingness to learn. For his capacity to change. For his honest effort. Thank you for this small apartment. This quiet life. This earned peace. The bells stopped. The silence returned. Comfortable. Mine. I stood. Turned off the last lamp. Went to bed. The sheets were cold. The room dark. The building quiet. But underneath, warmth. Not from radiators. From something else. Something internal. Something earned. The maid had quit. The mother had held boundaries. The teacher had taught. The woman had survived. And Christmas morning would come. With coffee. With crossword puzzles. With simple routines. With enough. Always enough. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Spring came slowly. Then all at once. March melted into April. The gardens woke up. I had started volunteering in February. Tuesday and Thursday mornings, 9 to noon, teaching children about native plants. The program was called Growing Roots. Elementary students came in groups. 20 at a time, wide-eyed, curious, messy. I showed them how to test soil, how to identify seedlings, how to plant without damaging roots. The same lessons Harold had taught for 15 years. His journals guided me, his notes, his sketches, his patient explanations preserved in careful handwriting. The children listened, most of them. Some fidgeted, some asked questions, some just dug in the dirt. That was fine. Harold always said gardening taught multiple lessons. Even the fidgety ones learned something. One girl asked if plants felt pain when you pruned them. Her name was Maya, 7 years old. Serious. I told her plants responded to care. They grew toward light, toward water, toward attention. Pruning helped them focus energy. Made them stronger. She nodded, said that made sense. Then asked if people were like that too. I told her yes. Sometimes people needed pruning too. Sometimes cutting away what did not serve them made them stronger. She thought about that, then went back to planting marigolds. Carefully, precisely, like she understood. In April, the scholarship winners were announced. 3 students, all exceptional, all passionate about plants, about design, about growth. The selection committee had narrowed it from 47 applications. Reading essays, reviewing portfolios, checking references. The winners were invited to a small ceremony. April 22nd, Earth Day. Appropriate timing. Marisol attended. So did the garden director. 2 committee members. The 3 students and their families. Ethan came too. I had invited him. He arrived early, helped set up chairs, made small talk with strangers. He looked different, thinner, clearer somehow, like someone who had stopped carrying extra weight. The ceremony was simple, brief. The director spoke about Harold's legacy, his dedication, his teaching, his love of sharing knowledge. Each student received a certificate, a check, a copy of Harold's favorite gardening book, annotated, with his notes inside. The first winner was Marcus, 19, community college student, first in his family pursuing higher education. He wanted to design urban gardens, green spaces in food deserts. The second was Lynn, 22, switching careers from finance to landscape architecture. She talked about sustainability, native ecosystems, climate adaptation. The third was Sophia, 18, high school senior. Her essay described her grandmother's garden in Mexico. How plants connected generations. How design preserved memory. Each of them reminded me of Harold. The curiosity, the respect for living things, the desire to teach others. After the ceremony, Sophia approached me, asked if I was Mrs. Bennet, Harold's wife. I said yes. She said her grandmother had known him, had taken his workshops years ago, had learned everything from him. Her grandmother had passed last year, but her garden still thrived, still fed the family, still taught lessons, because Harold had taught her how. Sophia said she wanted to do the same thing, create gardens that outlived her, that kept teaching, that mattered beyond her own life. I told her that was the best possible goal, the highest calling. Harold would be honored. She hugged me, unexpected, tight, then went back to her family, her grandmother's garden growing in her. Continuing, Ethan watched the exchange. When Sophia left, he said that was beautiful, that Harold's impact kept spreading, like ripples. I agreed, told him legacy was not about monuments. It was about multiplication, teaching people who taught others, forever forward. He said he wanted to create that kind of impact. In his own work, his own life, something that mattered beyond himself. I told him he would. He was already starting, by choosing honesty, by doing his own work, by not passing his patterns forward. We walked through the gardens after everyone left. The tulips were blooming, red, yellow, white, brave flags against dark soil. Ethan told me about his apartment, about his routine, about the extra projects he was taking, saving money, paying down debt. He had started cooking, actually cooking, not ordering, not microwaving, learning recipes, making mistakes, improving. It felt good, he said. Taking care of himself, being self-sufficient, not needing someone else to manage his life. I told him that was adulthood. Real adulthood, not age, not marriage, not houses, just competence, responsibility, self-respect. He said Savannah had moved to California. Her parents bought her a condo there. Los Angeles. She was doing marketing for a wellness brand. Her social media showed beaches, yoga, green smoothies, captions about new beginnings, fresh starts, finding herself. No mention of the house, the divorce, the lesson, just performance, still performing. He said he hoped she would grow, eventually, but he was not responsible for that anymore. Not his work, not his weight. I told him that was wisdom. Hard-earned, expensive, but real. We sat on Harold's bench. The dahlia beds were being prepared. Volunteers worked quietly, raking, mulching, tending. Ethan asked if I missed the old house. The space, the memories. I told him I missed Harold. Not the house. The house had become a burden, a performance space, a place where I lost myself. This apartment was smaller, simpler, truer. It fit me better. Let me breathe. Let me be. He said he understood that now. Said his one bedroom felt more like home than the big house ever did. Because it was his, earned by his work, maintained by his effort, no one else's sacrifice holding it up. That made it real, made it his, made it matter. I told him his father would be proud. Not of the divorce, not of the loss, but of the learning, the growth, the honesty. Ethan's eyes filled. He did not hide it. Just let the tears come. Sit there, then fade. He said he wished Dad could see this. See him finally growing up. Finally getting it. I told him Harold knew. Somehow, somewhere, however these things worked. He knew. And he was proud. We sat in comfortable silence. watched the volunteers work, watched the gardens prepare for summer, watched life continue its patient cycles. Before Ethan left, he asked if I needed anything. Money, help, anything at all. I told him I needed nothing. I had enough, more than enough. I was exactly where I needed to be. He hugged me, long, real, then walked toward the parking lot. His car was modest now. Used, practical, paid for, no more leases, no more performance, just transportation, honest, functional, his. I stayed on the bench, watched afternoon light angle through trees, watched shadows lengthen, watched the day turn toward evening. A woman pushed a stroller past. The baby slept. The mother looked tired, content, moving forward. Two teenagers sat on the grass, sharing earbuds, laughing, living their own young math. An elderly man walked slowly, cane tapping, steady, patient, still here, still moving. Life continued. Seasons turned. People learned or they did not. Grew or they stayed small. Chose truth or chose performance. I had made my choice. Last November, in Marisol's office, with a fountain pen and clear intention, the consequences had rippled outward. Through Ethan, through Savannah, through the house, through everything. Some of those consequences hurt. Some taught. Some did both. That was how consequences worked. Impartial, inevitable, fair. But underneath the consequences, something else grew. Something quiet. Something real. Something earned. Self-respect. Boundaries. Clarity. Peace. Not the peace of avoidance. The peace of alignment. Of saying true things. Of living honestly. Of choosing myself without apology. That peace was worth every difficult conversation. Every hard choice. Every moment of discomfort. Because it was real. It was mine. It was enough. The gardens would close soon. Dusk approaching. The volunteers were packing up. Storing tools. Finishing their work. I stood. Brushed off my coat. Walked toward the exit. Past the memorial plaques. Past the donor walls. Past Harold's name. Engraved. Permanent. Remembered. The walk home took 15 minutes. Familiar now. Comfortable. Mine. The apartment building stood solid. Brick. Modest. Real. Frank waved from the lobby. I waved back. The elevator rattled upward. 4th floor. Corner unit. 4C. Home. Inside, Harold's books lined the shelves. His pocket watch ticked on the table. His journals sat on the desk. But the space was mine. The peace was mine. The life was mine. I made tea. Sat by the window. Watched the city light up. Watched evening settle. Watched the world continue. Tomorrow I would volunteer again. Teach more children about soil. About patience. About tending things carefully. Next week, Ethan would come for dinner. Bring groceries. Cook together. Talk honestly. Build something real. Next month, the scholarship students would start their programs. Begin their education. Carry Harold's lessons forward. And I would keep living. Simply, honestly, completely. In this small apartment. With this quiet peace. With this earned enough. The maid had quit. The mother had held firm. The teacher had taught. The woman had bloomed. And the garden continued. Patient. Faithful. True. Exactly as Harold had always said it would.